What's going on again, guys? This is your host, Daft Kid. I just want to remind you guys, if you like the content that you're hearing and seeing and listening to, please click the like and subscribe button. We really appreciate it from everyone here from the EDM Filter family. Let's get into the episode. Welcome in, guys, to another episode of the EDM Filter Show. As your host, Daft Kid, just me again. We have another update, if you will, in the DJ music world industry with Pioneer, their brand new mixer, the DJM-A9. Have any of you guys heard of it? If you know anything about it, please leave it in the comment section below. We'd love to hear about it. Today's episode, though, I kind of wanted to briefly break it down, if you will, without going into too much detail, because if I'm gonna be honest with you guys, if I could get one, if I could, have it in my hands right now, I would definitely do, kind of like a demo explanation, and that way I could actually really go into depth with what we're talking about here, essentially. I kind of want to keep this episode brief because of the reasons I just mentioned. I feel like in order for me to really go into depth with technicality and how these new features really apply to, really anything you want to do as far as mixing goes. I wish I had the mixer in hand, but I don't. So we're going to kind of just go through some of the new features that they're mentioned, what I've read and seen on paper, as well as maybe a little thorough explanation in regards to what I've seen through what other people online have posted, because that is for sure, guys. Not gonna lie here, I'm not the first to break this story. I believe now the mixer it's been about a week now since the mixer dropped, so I know there's plenty of guys out there that are putting in a lot of work, let's say, into making these explanatory videos and giving everyone a sneak peek into really what makes this mixer the next big thing. So let's get into it real quick. So to start off, my initial reaction is it's a cool mixer. It's interesting because we have like the Nexus 3000, which would be the current flagship mixer from Pioneer, up until the DJM-A9 essentially dropped, which would be now the new flagship. But I'm going to be doing, I guess you could say, as far as a comparison wise goes, the Nexus and the DJM, how they're both similar and how they're not, as well as being, in case you guys haven't noticed, I got these bad boys right here behind me. These are I got the X1850 mixer, and we got the SE6000 turntables. Interesting enough. So I will just quickly say the reason why I chose these guys over the Pioneers is because at the time that these dropped, I felt like these had, or let's actually start with like the mixer, right? I think the mixer here, actually, the X1850, has some pretty unique features that goes with it. Some features that I thought, the Pioneer mixer didn't really offer, as well with the turntables. The SE6000s has some features to it that I felt like the CDJs 3000s, Nexus didn't really hit for me personally. Now, again, I am kind of giving my opinion here. That's not to say that I wouldn't use a Pioneer mixer or turntables. Everyone knows it's the kind of like the standard still in the industry, although Denon is on its way up to be matching them, if not possibly surpassing them, which kind of goes into why I decided to purchase these guys over the Pioneers, because I felt like when these guys dropped, they were kind of introducing something a little new, a bit of a twist of what we already all know for those who DJ and do mixing. It seemed like it kind of had the edge a little bit, particularly like we're talking about electronic music here. I feel like it has some really cool features that really helps for creating the electronic vibe that we've spoken about before. Now, with that being said, Pioneer is the standard and they have cool features of their own. But let's kind of get into the DJM-A9 here for a second. It does have some new features, but overall it's actually pretty similar still to the Nexus. It's not it's innovative, don't get me wrong. They did add some cool features, but is this something that you really have to like jump into, something that you have to immediately go to the store and get? Absolutely not. I think if you're currently using actually even the prior DJM, or if you want to go with the Nexus series, I think you'll be just fine either way with the current features that they offer and what you could do with them. And really, guys, if I actually haven't mentioned this before, if you will, or I don't think I've actually gone into depth, but it's really not, at least in my opinion, guys, it's not really about what the features of the equipment has, it's what you do with it that makes the mix and the artist special. Okay, let's get into this for a second here. So let's start with the headphones. So the headphones now, you could do some pretty interesting things with. You could do separate EQing, or should I say separate queuing for your different channels on your mixer. So for those who are maybe not too familiar, each line that you see physically on the mixer that represents the volume fader for each track that you're playing. Before you used to be able to cue into your headphones which track you want to play. You could have done that individually, but now they've taken it to a whole new step, being that there's actually now 2 headphone jacks, or 2 sets of headphone parameters and settings that you could use as you're mixing. Something I'm going to get into kind of towards the end as my final takeaway about this new product. But just to kind of go off of the features right now, it's cool because really essentially you got the ability now to have 2 people controlling what you're listening to and how you listen to it on the fly, which is very convenient for a lot of duo performers. And that's a lot that we're seeing nowadays. We're seeing a lot of guys now joining forces, if you will, and coming together and being like a duo band, which is cool. Nothing wrong with that at all. Completely respect that. So now they've made this feature definitely for them. Now the duo performers now are able to completely lock themselves in 2 different worlds simultaneously. So I know from my understanding, guys who do the duo performances, they all come in different shapes and sizes, if you will, right? Like everyone has a different style of doing transitions, writing special effects, if you will, and things of that nature. So one guy could be, say, doing the actual mixing, he's performing or whatnot, while the other guy, say, is maybe cueing the next song. But instead of now kind of like having to be careful, if you will, or having to wait for the guy that's mixing a song with another song, or like transitioning one song to another, now they don't have to worry about that. One guy could be fully in his own realm, if you will, in his own world of going through the library, queuing different tracks, maybe effects, maybe even samples, and not have to worry about the other guy who's actually over here, maybe dropping a new track into the mix. Maybe he's building up a build-up. Maybe he's go out to perform an actual drop itself, and nobody has to worry about, well, I don't want to accidentally press this, and I don't necessarily want to accidentally move this or that, because it's going to mess up my guy here who's in the process of a transition, let's say. And now you have the split functionality, so there's no running into issues in that regards. Again, guys, you could definitely look up online for more thorough explanations as to how exactly this is going to affect new performers, if you will, or even professionals, everyone in the spectrum, because again, everyone's different, everyone has different styles, and like I mentioned earlier, it really comes down to what you could do with the equipment and not what the equipment could do for you. So the next thing I want to cover is center lock for the coloring or FX knob. So particularly on the Pioneer mixers, it will for your knob that controls essentially your effects, we'll say color. Other brands and mixers and controllers, if you will say FX or whatnot, but in the case of Pioneer, it's color. So before, for those who are familiar, a lot of DJs like using the effects knob because you could, the most popular effect would be, say, EQ, high pass, low pass filter. So if you could, add that filter during a transition, let's say, or for a drop, it builds that kind of suspense, right? Which is what we all like. This new center lock feature actually allows you to quickly go back to a neutral parameter for the effect. So let's say you are starting at a low pass and you are slowly building your way up to 0% or 0%, zero intensity, if you will, or zero send for that effect. it's going to help you lock it right at center. So usually, I know I've seen it time and time again, and I myself have tried it before, where for the drop, here it comes, you're about to transition to the next song, and you really want to get the timing of that effect right. So we're right in the drop, you either reach 0 or maybe even pass into high, or move over into the high pass instead of low, and maybe you're trying to build an effect that way. But the idea here is you want to be able to change the parameter or the send amount of that effect as quickly as possible and as effectively as possible. And sometimes, because we're humans and our bodies are only made of bone and flesh, and then, particularly if we're talking about, like you're saying, playing at a club or even like a festival, your fingers are going to move quickly to turn that knob. But sometimes because maybe you're nervous or something, you might move it too fast, and so you go over, so instead of hitting 0, you're now into the high pass section of the filter, so to speak, and you're at +5 or something, and kind of and might and totally will completely destroy the transition you're trying to create if that's not what you're trying to do, right? Well, this new center lock feature, and there's a button for it now, or a switch on the mixer, so you don't have to worry about like, I'm not sure when this is going to take effect. You can turn it on and off right on the mixer. But it's neat though, because again, as I mentioned, if you're starting from 100% low pass, and you're trying to go all the way back to 0 very quickly, it's going to physically stop you at 0. So you won't actually go over. And that honestly is a great feature, because I have been in that boat of, you could say due to nervousness or whatever other things, that I turned the knob too quickly or put too much strength into it, a little too much power, and oh whoops, I went a little over, and so great, there goes my transition, or there goes the kind of drop, or at least the effect that I'm trying to create with it. Really cool feature, something the X1850 doesn't have. Not that to say though that without this feature, whatever mixer you're using, or even controller, or hey, maybe you have an X1850 as well, it's not gonna, I would say, ruin the experience, and I don't think it really takes away from anything you're trying to do. Just something to keep in mind of, I guess, if you are using anything other than the new DJM-A9, and if you don't use the center lock feature, then you have to keep in mind that, okay, I have to make sure that I don't go over when I do this transition, and the timing has to be right. So really cool feature. I think that's nice, and I look forward to seeing actually how more and more professional DJs, or just DJs in general, use this feature and what they really think about it. By the way, guys, of course, leave a comment in the section below if you already have used it or you're going to use it. Let us know what you think. Moving on to the next, we got new sound effects. So we got a Mobius sound effect, triplet roll sound effect, triplet filter, and to make it all nice and concise and beautiful for you, they've even added a nice touch X pad, which is really cool, because the traditional way of changing your parameters, let's say you want an effect to be coming down on a quarter of a time of a beat, or a fourth of a beat, or a 16th of a beat, three quarters of a beat, so on and so forth. There's usually like a physical knob that you're turning to change this parameter. And there's no need for that no more, guys, because now you got the touchpad itself, which is what I thought was really cool about the X1850 when it came out, because that was standard to the mixer, and that's what really kind of, I want to say that completely sold me, but that's one of the features that sold me, because definitely, and for any DJs out there, please let me know what you think about this. Leave us a comment in the section below. But I think definitely this kind of adds, takes away, changes, could be for positive or for negative, really depends on people's mixing style on the touchpad. Because again, I like to think I think a lot of guys, including myself still, even though I've already been able to play so many times and perform in front of a lot of people, I sometimes do get nervous myself. And so maybe your hands get a little sweaty. I know I got a sweaty hand, guys. And so maybe that touchpad might not work right when you need it, because your sweaty hands are starting to get, the touchpad a little moist, and now it's starting to, maybe the touchpad's starting to freak out, or because, you left some moisture on the pad, it starts manipulating something for you when you don't want it, and obviously we all know that could be very bad. So great feature for the X1850, but I'm not surprised they added it now to the DJM-A9, because it really is nice, especially when you're trying to be really quick with, on the fly remixing and adding effects to your tracks. Sometimes I mean, I don't know. I guess it's kind of hard to explain, but there's something about sometimes changing the knob of the effect that it kind of takes away from maybe your current mindset of, okay, I got like 3 to 4 different things to do right now for this transition. Having to like physically move around this knob might be taking some time, or maybe even some concentration from another feature that I'm trying to do. The touchpad really adds to the functionality of your mixing, and I think it's a great feature. Another thing about that is, if you look at the Nexus series, the mixer has already has like if you will, a LCD screen, but it's kind of like some would say like a 16-bit screen, kind of basic, kind of like what the 1850 has here. I mean, is it really that much of an issue? Is it really an improvement to have the LCD screen? I think so. But what makes this LCD screen different is that now it's like a full-blown color one. So you're not looking at like pixelated settings anymore. You're looking at like a full-blown, nicely bold fonted lettering that's telling you, hey, you're using this effect, you're doing this, you're doing that. If we're talking like in a club environment, we're talking like a festival, that does make a big difference, because you really want to be able to see what you're doing, right? And of course, like I mentioned, due to maybe nervousness, whatever's going on in your mind as you're performing, it could be the littlest things as, man, because my mind is maybe looking at the LCD screens and my turntables, it's kind of throwing me off when I'm looking at this like little 18-bit, if you will, LCD screen on the mixer. But see, now you don't have to worry about that. Now you got a full-blown color LCD screen with all the different parameters that go with it. So it's really a win-win. I think that's a great feature. But again, if you're using an older mixer, if you will, I guess now you could say the X1850 is a bit of an older mixer. It's not really going to take anything away. I think just how I would say anyone who's using the newer turntables compared to DJs, I don't know, 800s or something, in the day, it still helps you to play the music you want. And if you know what you're doing, you're still going to be able to drop a nice transition. So either way, though, I think this is a really cool feature. Not necessarily a deal breaker for me, but any improvement is nice, and this is definitely an improvement. Again, guys, I know there's other videos online right now of guys playing around with these effects, so please check them out and let me know what you guys think. Moving on now to like mic control. So before, you used to only be able to use like a regular condenser microphone, if you will, or like a dynamic microphone, really, I should say. But now they've added a phantom power to the mixer, so you could really use a nice condenser microphone, but like a studio condenser microphone. Now, this is something to me that's a little funny, because I'm not sure why you would want to use a condenser microphone, or more so, should I say, a studio caliber microphone when you're in the middle of a performance. We all know, for those who've been in studios and understand how, really audio equipment works, particularly in a recording studio, condenser microphones are very, very sensitive. What do you know? I'm using a condenser microphone right now. If I don't EQ this thing properly per se, or if I don't make sure there's not a bunch of things going on around me, this bad boy here is going to pick up every little detail. Now imagine that if you're in a club where the music's being blasted. I don't know if a condenser microphone is the solution or the way to go. Now, I will say, though, the mic control feature that they added here does add different effects, and it's right there on the face of the mixer, so you can add things like reverb, echo, pitch, and now what they really are trying to showcase is megaphone effect. Not gonna lie, I've seen a couple videos on it already. I could totally see where it could help. Actually, on the contrary, I think the megaphone feature or effect could really add to some really cool drops. I mean, you could really get very creative, and I think that's really what it comes down to, right? They wanted to add more creativity to using the mic. Everyone knows how, usually MCs in clubs go about, announcing certain tracks or giving messages or public service announcements, if you will. They want people to get a little more creative with that, so they're adding these new features, effect features, so you could be different, and I think that's totally cool. There's nothing wrong with that, but again, for me, I just don't know if I would be wanting to use such a high quality mic in an environment like that, because I think really, any kind of dynamic microphone would be just fine. But hey, maybe I'm not as creative as others are, so to speak. So as of right now, at the time that I'm recording this video, I haven't had the chance to get my hands on this mixer, so I can't myself play with it. Maybe once I play with it a little bit more, once I actually use a condenser like this one per se, then I could really say and give my true, honest, detailed opinion about, if it's really something that's necessary, if you will. Are you gonna really go out to buy this new mixer for this feature, or is this an added feature the deal breaker for you? For me, as of right now, not necessarily, but I'm not gonna lie, adding all these features to the mic control area is really cool, and I'm all about the creativity. So if anyone could show me a really cool way of implementing this in, say, a drop or a transition, please leave that in the comment section below, or don't forget, guys, to reach us out through our email as well. Moving on to the next section. Oh yes, I should mention, for the mic control section, there is now, they added different sizes of microphone inputs. So you got your 1/4 inch and you got your full-blown TRS input, and I think that's great, because that's something that I really liked about the X1850 that, say, the Nexus series wasn't offering. And I thought that was very convenient, because actually I think, hey, we've all been there. We kind of misplace our equipment, we misplace our adapters, the TRS adapters. I know I have. So there's nothing more convenient than to be able to just to go ahead and input your headphones into the regular 1/4 inch jack, and everyone's happy. Nobody's going to be frustrated. No one's going to have to worry about, holy crap, I came to this event, I came to the, I'm doing this wedding, let's say, and oh my goodness, I can't even use my headphones now because I missed the adapter. For all you iPhone users out there, I know you guys have to use the adapters now to use a headphone jack, which, I totally get that we're in a time of life, an evolution of technology where it's all about Bluetooth. So I'm not bashing Bluetooth functionality here in any way, shape, or form, which, by the way, we're going to get into that in a second. But we all know it's a little annoying, if you really want to use it like some traditional headphones or earbuds that come with the cable, it's a little annoying to have to go buy an adapter. And again, I'm sure plenty of iPhone users out there have, in many cases, in different situations, have gone to who knows where for what. And here you are trying to use your headphones, and you can't use them because you didn't bring the adapter, or maybe you misplaced it or lost it and they had to go buy another one, and it's annoying, right? So I like how they pretty much did what the 1850 did. They added the same feature. You got 2 now jacks or inputs, so you have 2 different options essentially for your headphones. Not to mention that the DJM-A9 has 2 separate headphone sections, if you will, so where you're able to control 2 complete different parameters. So maybe one guy only has the 1/4, maybe the other guy has the full-blown TRS, and everyone's happy in the day, or vice versa, and as in with the different adapters. But great way to solve a common issue, and I think it's a great feature. Definitely outbeats the X1850. Next section. So I think, as far as what might be one of the coolest functions or features that they added to this new mixer, has to be the USB connectivity. I mean, man, you could literally now, and so here's the crazy thing about this. Again, I'm kind of speaking just from what I've read on paper, and at least from what I've searched so far, I haven't seen too many people actually, explore this functionality. But just kind of think about it for a second. You could really, so essentially what they've added to this mixer is, so now each individual channel, at the very top, you have essentially your input knob, where your signal's coming in. And so now you could add, or I should say, now they added a Bluetooth parameter, so you can add a device to each separate channel. Think about that just for a second. Before I really go into detail about the Bluetooth functionality, I had to talk about the USB-C edition. Oh my goodness. That is probably the one thing about the Denon X1850 that I'm just a little disappointed about, because definitely during the release of this equipment, the world, if you will, was already transitioning into this USB-C phase. Okay, everyone was using your traditional A and B USB. Now we're moving into USB-C, which is a much better, high quality, much more functional cable that could do a lot more for you. I like to think that instead of using, say, your traditional USB A or B cable that could be heavier, thicker, take up more space, if you will, say you have your bag of equipment, you're on the run and you have all these cables, your traditional USB cables usually take up more space, they're thicker and all this stuff. The USB-C, slimmer, more effective, less space, lighter. It's just the all-around way to go. And I thought that they would have maybe added something like that to the X1850. So then that way you could connect your laptop, let's say, to one specific channel. The key here, I would say, guys, is the creativity, right? This is where Pioneer, I have to give them a thumbs up that they really decided to evolve the creativity aspect here. Because you could really do a lot with just one channel. And the fact that now there's a Bluetooth connectivity aspect to it, you could say, I don't know, add an iPad to one channel or add some sort of tablet and control different parameters from your tablet through the USB device. Maybe you are in this duo situation that I mentioned, right? You're playing with a friend and you guys have separate laptops. Well, maybe instead of using the actual mixer itself to mix the performance you're about to perform, you rather just by USB connect your laptop to this one channel, and through your, say, some sort of DJ software, production software, I'm just gonna throw out Ableton out there. You could do all the mixing in Ableton, all the effects and everything right in your computer software, but the channel would be used as a nice output channel, I should say. And so, man, if the mixer has 4 channels, that's 4 different laptops you could have connected to each individual channel. Now think about the creativity aspect that goes into that. Really, really excited to see this and hear this. I'm a little bummed out that the X1850 doesn't have this feature, but I'm not surprised because this was definitely Pioneer's #1 competition flagship mixer, and this is definitely one way to one up denondj, no doubt. I think this has got to be, like I mentioned, one of the best features. I could totally see guys running with this and just getting so creative, and actually really even eliminates possibly the use of the turntables. And I don't want to necessarily get into that in this episode, but we could definitely get into that at a different time. Because I think possibly that just might be the future of DJing. We might not even need the turntables, maybe just a mixer. And I know guys already use just touchpads that already have, EQ functionality to them. You could do a lot essentially with just all these little touchpads. And like I already mentioned, Ableton, you could do full performances in Ableton. So seeing guys use only touchpads for Ableton is really cool. And I could see something like this now with the new functionalities and inputs that this mixer has. You could do a lot more than maybe what Ableton might provide you. You might be able to even use several different softwares as you're performing. I mean, the possibilities in a way kind of gets endless here, and I'm really excited to see how this goes. But going back to just essentially the Bluetooth aspect of it, we were kind of talking right now about the USB-C, and I kind of mix that into the Bluetooth. But the Bluetooth here, I think, really is the selling feature, and I've already spoken quite a bit about it. But man, I mean, can it get any better than this? Is then and now going to be in trouble because you can't control the mixer with other devices? But if we're gonna just like completely scratch out the Bluetooth aspect just for a second, just thinking about the USB-C, game changer, man. I mean, I think in the day I'd rather use the USB-C input than USB A or B. That's just me personally, guys. Please let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I'd really actually love to hear what you guys think about that. And does it really make that much of a difference? For me, it's kind of a yes or a no. I don't think I would necessarily go out to buy the mixer just for this, because in the day, the other, USB cables, A, B, and so on and so forth, they still do the same thing. I mean, I guess you could argue if you're worrying about processing power, you're trying to process an effect. So I mentioned using Ableton, to do like live remixing or performancing. Maybe you're trying to process something from Ableton into your mixer, and from your mixer out to your PA system at your performance that you're currently live at. Maybe, I mean, sure, there's a little processing, power issues you could run into if you're using the older cables, but all the hardware that you're already using, let's say the laptop itself and the mixer, has such great processing power now that really I don't think the cable is gonna make that much of a difference. But nonetheless, as we get into using higher quality audio and all of these things, it could make a difference in the end. And for some people's performances, it could absolutely be a game changer. I mentioned that you could use like an iPad or a tablet. I think one of the really coolest features actually is the multi-IO channel. So like we already mentioned, you could pretty much individually use each channel to be able to produce whatever kind of sound you want through a different outlet. Well, the face of the mixer itself has a multi-IO feature. So instead of having everything you're doing in the mixer come out of your master output, you can now have it individually coming out from different channels. So, as I mentioned, for those who are doing the duo performances, maybe the guy that's currently in front of the decks is mixing two songs together, so he's using two channels, but the other guy can maybe use the other two channels to be putting out some other, let's say, sample, sound effect as it's transitioning with the other guy is going on. Really helps with compatibility for individual creativity, and I think that is the biggest key here. Like I mentioned earlier, Pioneer is definitely trying to get creative. This allows people to get very creative, to be able to select how you want your output for individual stuff to come out, with the added and custom parameters of effects, and I mean, you name it. Like it's creative, it's fun, and I think it's unique. I gotta give Pioneer some credit for adding this feature. Again, I wish I could have my hands on this, but unfortunately, I kind of don't. So, but it's okay. I will be able to get there one day, hopefully sooner than later. Hopefully. But moving on, guys, pretty much the last thing I really wanted to mention was the app. So I already kind of mentioned using a tablet, using like say an iPad. So there's a Stagehand app now, and the app allows you to see in real time the different functionalities and parameters and settings that you have as you're playing live. So from what I've seen, this is kind of more like a front of the house feature. So the engineers who are making sure that your audio, your performance is sounding good, they can now have a real live time app that's connected Bluetooth to your mixer that's going to let them know all the settings that you're going through. So this really actually another great feature, because you could maybe not be realizing, I'm kind of more speaking from if things go wrong kind of perspective, but things always go wrong. Let me just say, I know things always go wrong. Even when you plan it out perfectly, something goes wrong. Because, in the day, you can't really control equipment. It's just all wiring and mechanisms and robotics stuff, if you will, whatever, and things fail sometimes. And it's out of our control. And it's unfortunate, but it happens, and you have to essentially evolve in the situation, adapt to it. And this really helps with the adapting, because if your front of the house could see what's going on in real live time, what's happening on your mixer, something's going wrong, maybe you don't realize actually that, hey, this guy's got like echo effect on, and he's at like 75% send, what I'm saying? Like there's a lot of output coming out for this effect. He might not realize, that, maybe because he's wearing headphones and he forgot that he has, one channel EQ'd, and he's listening to one channel that's cued into his headphones, and doesn't realize that what's coming out of the master is a lot of this sand, a lot of this echo. So now it sounds like whatever's coming out of the speakers is really distorted. The front of the house crew could really save your butt in that situation, because they got the pad right there to turn off that effect for you, and even start maybe even adjusting the EQ knobs. So maybe because this echo feature started to mess with your transition a bit, now you could like at ease, not worry about, oh dang, maybe in the moment you're realizing, oh my goodness, I had echo on this whole time and I didn't realize it, and because I was in my headphones and I was hearing something else, I wasn't hearing the master output, and master output sounds like someone was vomiting. So now that I'm realizing and I have to fix this on the fly really quickly, I might not be able to like fully make this next transition even doable, because maybe what's been happening is so off that it's already gonna just ruin the transition I'm trying to build. And unfortunately your listeners are gonna be hearing the next 30 seconds of just audio vomit, if you will, just pure sound vomit, and nobody wants that. But hey, these guys now, like I said, at the front of the house could see all of it in real time. They could adjust all your settings, everything that you're doing right there on your mixer for you, if you will, or just better yet, just to have a better understanding of what you're doing. I think this is actually really cool for people who are learning, because you can have a professional throw down a mix in front of you, and on the pad you'll be able to see all the technical things that they're doing. And I'm not gonna lie, guys, this is something I wish I had when I first started, because this would have really helped with understanding the technicality of, why does it matter if I'm, adding reverb to one track? Why does it matter if I put 100% effect rather than say 20%? Why does it matter if I'm doing like a triplet effect, and it's kind of has a bit of like a delay sound to it, right? Why does it matter if the delay is at a quarter of a beat rather than half a beat, or 3/4 of a beat? What does that even mean? These are things that, like, as a learner, something you should definitely learn as you're beginning. But to be able to see this in real time, from a nice, concise, if you will, perspective, it really changes a lot. And I think it's a great feature. But I think it's more so even better for the clubs, for festivals, anyone who's really performing. I mean, you got it all right there in the pad, even if for yourself too. Maybe you could set up the pad in front of you. So forget the front of the house for a second. You could set up your own pad to where you could see visually different effects, or maybe samples you want to input. And these pads, these iPads, these tablets, they're all touchscreen, so you could be right there, maybe beat mashing, doing some sort of nice little remix effect, but you still have the full functionality parameters of your mixer. Creativity. I think this is really, really great, and I can't wait to see how guys are really going to use this feature essentially in the end. Okay, so that's pretty much the basic gist of some of these new features. Again, I really wish, guys, I could physically show you with my own hands how these new functionalities and features really change what Den is trying to do in the DJ world and industry. But I think and I hope that what I've already mentioned so far gives you guys just kind of a basic understanding, and from my perspective, on what these functions do. As time goes on, I'm sure there's going to be way more information coming out, and like I already mentioned, more and more videos and demos and demonstrations on how all this stuff works, and I myself personally look forward to it. But I do want to just give my biggest takeaway real quick. So overall, is this a good mixer? Absolutely. I mean, as I've already seen and as I've already mentioned, it's adding some pretty cool stuff. The Bluetooth functionality, you got a USB-C input, new sound effects. You can do some pretty cool stuff with your mic now. It's not going to sound bland, if you will. Your headphone splitting. And now you could, well, essentially individually route your signal in so many different ways. Not to mention that, man, the convenience in being able to be creative on the fly. Would I go ahead and buy this mixer immediately? If I had the money, I don't know. And I only say that because it really depends on your mixing style and what are you trying to do. If you're someone who's already playing in the clubs, let's say, consistently, maybe you're already doing small time festivals, yeah, this would definitely be the way to go, because some of these new effect features and your IO features and how you route your signal could really be a game changer. And once you add the whole like Bluetooth connectivity, or if you want to just go with USB-C still, connecting different devices, and I haven't really even touched about like MIDI, because You could get even crazier if you connect many devices, and that's really the best part about it. Now just imagine, like, you know, you got your laptop set up, whether it's connected through Bluetooth or USB-C, and you got like a MIDI controller, or let's say like a MIDI keyboard connected to your laptop. You could be right there, you know, scratching a track as you're playing like a piano riff or something, you know, with the dope synthesizer. I mean, again, creativity begins to kind of go out of the world just a little bit here, and man, I personally couldn't be happier. But I would say the biggest thing about this, or if I were to say who would benefit from this the most, duo performers. You guys will see as you yourselves do maybe some research, or hopefully the EDM Filter family here could get a hands-on one of these babies, and we could do some demonstration for you guys. But sooner than later, soon enough, you guys are going to be able to see that. Man, if you're trying to perform with a friend, or maybe it's not a friend, you're just jamming out with somebody, they really, really want to make this next mixer be appropriate and friendly for many people playing on stage at once. And I think as far as that goes, and that aspect, they kind of killed it. They did a great job. A lot of these new features is specifically for that. You know, when you really think about two different guys or women, or maybe co-ed, man and woman, on stage performing, you now have the functionality to do a lot together, but at the same time separately, if that makes sense. I really look forward to seeing that. You know, we already have quite a bit of duos coming out, you know, in the scene, and there's already has been for years now. But it's really nice to see, though, you know, it's not that like anymore, or if you will, I think what Pioneer is trying to incentivize here, trying to promote, is, you know, people might already have the misconception that when you go out to your next club event or the next festival you go to and you see a duo performing, there's a lot of misconception that, you know, people think that only one guy is playing and the other guy is just like BSing or something. You know, he's just standing around looking cool, looking pretty on camera. You know, he might be out there throwing his hands in the air and looking all cool, whatever, but he's not doing much. So then, you know, then you got the haters starting to talk and then being like, well, you know, these guys are just riding the show, whatever people want to say, what people want to think, that's on them. But I mean, this now really gives both guys or women, or guy and girl, the ability to be very creative independently, but together at the same time. I think for those who have experience with these kind of mixers, or you have experience DJing and mixing, I think that would make a lot of sense. For those who are kind of just starting off, I could completely understand how that sounds contradictory, but I'm pretty sure sooner than later you will understand what I'm talking about. Anyways, guys, I hope this episode has given you a bit of a better insight on the DJM-A9. Like I said, my overall takes, I think it's a great mixer. I think it specializes for duo performers. It gives duo performers way more creativity now to do what they want live in the moment on stage, while at the same time be able to add a ton of new creative ways of creating sound and mixing and remixing and maybe making a complete new beat, which is what makes Ableton kind of one of the coolest production softwares, in my opinion, on the market today. Because just within the software itself, you could do a lot of creative stuff. And to think that, like, taking that into the live performance realm or lifestyle, man, I'm starting to think now, excuse me, guys, I'm starting to think now that you could really, 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 really get into doing now like quad groups. You know what I'm saying? You got 4 guys up there and they're all controlling just one channel, and, you know, maybe on each channel they have their laptop connected by the new Bluetooth functionality, maybe by USB-C they got their MacBook Pro up there or something, and each individual guy maybe is playing a song, and, you know, they're all in their own worlds with their split queuing, and while still being able to hear what some of the other guys are doing, and then being able to mesh that all together at the right time with the right kind of energy. I mean, man, I'm over here just like thinking of all these new different ways of how this could really take over now. But I do want to mention last here is, although all these great features are amazing and it helps with creativity and it helps with flow of mixing, I can see some of the guys out there saying, well, this kind of takes away from traditional mixing then, because now I've heard some of these older cats say the best part about old school DJing with a lot of scratching, if you will, and even with the tournaments that are going on still these days, some of these scratch tournaments are absolutely amazing to see how some of these guys are just scratching. I mean, all the new techniques and all these features that they add into these scratching, movements, techniques, if you will. It brings this new experience to, an old school taste of doing things. But I think that might be a bit of an issue for some of the OGs, if you will. They'll be like, oh well, it's like having the sync button. You have all these features that do so much for you now that you're just standing there and you're not doing anything because it's being done for you. And that's what was the most amazing thing about DJing for these OGs, and even for me in certain aspects, all this time, is that the creativity of what you could do with the limited amount of functionality that you have on this equipment in front of you, while still being able to create this authentic experience for your listeners, is what makes the DJ the DJ. Are you still the DJ if the mixer is doing all these things for you now? And I mean, hey, I would definitely argue that takes away some of the stress, takes away room for error, takes away I'm sure there's a bunch of other issues that I can't really think of right now, but the number two that I'm thinking right now that come off instantly is room for error. And I mean, guys, let's be honest here. Let's be honest for a second here. We all want to be able to sit on the couch and be a potato. Some will argue this will allow you to be a potato on stage. I would disagree with that, but I'm not necessarily considered an OG, and I didn't grow up during a time where you literally had to carry your crates, of vinyl records around with you just to be able to play a song, let alone create a cool, mesmerizing effect into a song, and creating this vibe that people don't even realize you're transitioning to a new song, and all because you did some really cool, engineering, if you will, right there on the fly with the limitability of functionality that you have. But all this stuff now kind of does that for you. So, I can see there'll be some mixed opinions. But if we're talking from the newer generation here, I can't see anyone being happier. By the end of the day, I'm okay with my X1850. I think it has a lot of great features. And honestly, actually, guys, other than maybe like the Bluetooth feature and some of the Bluetooth USB-C feature and some of these new sound effects, the X1850 actually kind of has a good amount of some of these features that that Pioneer has been adding now to their new mixer, which I'm not surprised, because these guys are, the two superpowers of the industry going head to head. It's either blue team or red team, right? Now I can't say which color is distinguished with which company, but the idea here is, you got big power A, big power B. They're always colliding, and this is definitely Pioneer's way of giving denondj the haymaker to knock them out. Great attempt, great try. Will it completely knock them out? I can't say for sure, but these new features definitely helps their case on bringing them all the way back to the top to DJ superiority. Anyways, guys, this has been Daft Kid on the EDM Filter Show. Again, guys, click that subscribe and follow button. Please give us a like. I look forward to talking on the next episode. Now, I know I've been, telling you guys that we got a guest coming, which we do, but there's so much news coming out that I just have to cover some of this stuff, especially the DJM-A9. And like I said, guys, look forward to see what comes of it. This has been Daft Kid again, guys, on EDM Filter Show. I'll see you guys next time on the next episode. See you then.